Guys, thanks for joining us today. It's a remarkable achievement. SFS has been around for 30 years. And so we'd like to get some insights from yourselves, being important contributors to our history. And I'd like to start off with your thoughts on how SFS has evolved from a group of farmers in the mid-90s to a thriving non-for-profit organisation. Cam.
Oh, big question, but the evolution has really come about from a lot of perseverance and a lot of hard work from a lot of people, because to make the changes that we've had to make, you need to resource it, and therefore you need to basically get projects, get money in to do that sort of stuff. And parallel with that, you've got to build the capacity to be able to deliver on it. So if you think back to where the organisation started, which was a lot of enthusiasm and a few people getting together saying, look, and a lot of goodwill and a lot of stuff like that, to be where you are now, it's an amazing sort of journey over that 30 years.
So Cole, take us back to the start. Take us back to how those 6 or so farmers came together.
Well, I guess the issue was that farming in the high rainfall zone was failing in many respects. The livestock industry was under pressure from a return point of view, and the crops that people were growing were often failed crops because of principally waterlogging. And so it was born out of a necessity to make farming profitable. And that's where the group of 6, along with other supporters, we can't forget the support of industry, the community, and also we had very good support from the Department of Agriculture at the time. So it really brought together all of these players to work on a common theme as to how to try and reduce the waterlogging impact in crops, to try and increase profitability of farming, and that's really where it started.
Fantastic. So you've identified a key problem with the waterlogging. What, John, were the opportunities that we could make from this, and what were your first impressions on trying to crop in the high rainfall zone?
So my background, as you well know, is I came over from the UK, and I remember being told that the Western District was too wet to grow crops, and here was this organisation that had looked at this raised bed technology, and they were looking at effectively drainage and how to deal with waterlogging, which is and was the most fundamental issue that the area has and still does. So, you know, if you look back in my time, I've been over here 21 years, and I just think that the best years are always the dry winters where you don't get waterlogging, and then a good spring to follow up, and it's a hidden issue, the waterlogging and raised beds. Not everybody's still got raised beds. They've sort of come and gone a bit, but there are a lot of people still staying with it who believe it's the only way forward, and they've evolved as well.
Yeah. So in SFS's history, Cole, raised beds is seen as a game-changing moment. So what did you first think of this, and how did the adoption take off?
Well, the adoption was pretty rapid. We had machinery manufacturers modifying equipment to better manage broadacre cropping paddocks. We had a group of farmers who had a thirst for knowledge and were really enthusiastic in attracting other farmers around them to find out what was happening. We had excellent press coverage from a number of areas that wanted to know what this group of farmers in the high rainfall zone were doing, because really you can't grow crops in the high rainfall zone, but all of a sudden we were demonstrating that we can. And the excitement, and I guess I've been around for a while, worked in quite a few jobs, but the amount of excitement that was about in those early years of Southern Farming Systems with this new technology on board was fantastic. I really loved that working period of my life.
So I'll open this up to all of you, and perhaps, John, you want to reflect on this one, but was there any wow moments with the trial results that shifted farmer thinking around this?
I mean, one of the ones that's completely down to the work that Cam did, so I won't steal your thunder on it, is grain and graze. So grazing cereals particularly, people were doing it, but they didn't really know what they were doing. And today it's a very, very widely used tool that farmers have. And, you know, Cam, you obviously worked.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, John. But if you take a step back, as soon as you could see the potential by removing the waterlogging, then there had to be a whole agronomic package to go with it. And then it evolved into, well, what's the system? What are the other opportunities? So grazing crops was an opportunity for people that still had livestock. They thought, hang on, we can't grow feed in winter in our normal pastures. Growing these crops, can you actually eat some of those? Which then filled a very short gap, which all of a sudden made the whole system make more sense and be more robust and more profitable, as Cole said. So the beds were fundamental to, I reckon, giving people the thought that, hey, there's opportunity here. But there was a huge amount of work getting all the other pieces together, varieties, nitrogen, fertility type stuff, weed control, because all of a sudden you challenge with...
Yeah, the whole crop management thing has been absolutely huge. And I guess probably, again, when I first came over, I remember going up to a meeting in the Wimmera and I could see all these fields up in the Wimmera of faba beans, and I just couldn't begin to understand why in the Western District they were called failure beans, and people just didn't want to know about it. Well, you look today, it's absolutely phenomenal how that's such a key break crop now. And then once you start evolving that rotation, which, you know, people have realised is fundamental, and you just couldn't do one crop year on year, is you know, the advancements then in varieties, and like red wheat, I think, you know, SFS has played a major hand in developing that red wheat market, along with commercial companies that thankfully have taken it on board. But that's been essential because we haven't had the support of the breeding companies in Australia for red wheat, and I think SFS has played a massive part in the development of those varieties.
Cole, I'm interested in how this resonates with you, and when did you feel SFS was making a region-wide impact?
Yeah, both John and Cam are absolutely spot on. If I go right back, what was clearly obvious to many people after having had beds in for 1 or 2 years was that the soil structure was improving dramatically. Within the rooting zone, you know, plants could now breathe. And I can remember going out to a farm with the GRDC, key funding body, and going out and just digging plants up or pulling plants out and looking at the root system. And the root system on plants pulled up from bedded country was just fantastic. Earthworms, soil structure was markedly improved. So the impact on soils, particularly soil structure, through bedding, waterlogging control, but also reduced compaction, led on to things like controlled traffic, you know, wider beds, and all the other things, you know, such as precision agriculture, the use of GPS, yield mapping, yield monitoring. All of this spun off to a large extent from the early work that was done looking at you know, raised beds.
So from an organisational perspective, how did SFS grow from being a small contingent of farmers to 500 plus members?
Okay, well, I know funds were pretty tight back in the early days. There was I think there was $6,000 in the bank. That was the operating budget for SFS. And I came on board to help out. I was with the Department of Ag, but thought I'd rather get back to the coalface. So my position was funded 50% to run with the FarmSmart program, which was a department program, and 50% of the time was to help SFS set up a system and help them develop their operations. So I became the CEO of SFS with about 2 to 3 days of work per week. But over time, and the growth of membership was quite rapid. Other branches were developed. The Streatham Lake Bolac branch came on board. Then the Hamilton branch came on board. Then we started to do some work in the Gippsland, Bairnsdale, Sale, into Tasmania. The growth was phenomenal. And within 3 to 4 years, we'd grown all of these branches. We had somewhere in the order of 50 sponsors on board, and we'd grown our membership to around about 600 across all of this region. So that to me was telling me that what we were doing made sense to other farmers, and it enabled us to get a group of excited farmers together, get funding bodies on board. They could see what we were doing made sense, and also to get industry on board to help fund our projects. Okay, so it was a rapid growth and a very exciting period.
I think Colas nailed the two ingredients that make it successful. One is there was farmer enthusiasm because they could see opportunity.
Absolutely.
But that opportunity can wane pretty easily unless you've got structures in place that allow you to realise that opportunity. And I think the reason why the organisation grew is because in the early days, your ability to try to beg, borrow and steal, if you like, resources to match that enthusiasm, to get some runs on the board, and then the whole thing started to snowball. And everyone's going, hey, this is a good idea. Hey, what are these guys on about? There's something exciting here. So you drag people in, but it doesn't just happen. And enthusiasm by itself doesn't happen. So SFS, the key role that SFF played in responding to that enthusiasm, I reckon, Cole, listening and responding, that was just enormous. And that's, I reckon, set up the foundation of why 30 years later you're still successful, is because that hasn't been lost.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that SFS has gone a long way to let growers understand the value of small plot trials and how that then can translate into broad acre. So if you look at what SFS has done over the years in the trials, growers, members now understand what trials are all about. They know that they like to see that transition trial into a paddock scale trial, but I think that has enabled SFS to demonstrate different treatments and processes and what have you. But also, I think, and as a CEO, when I was doing it, one of the big challenges I set myself was to stay relevant to what the members wanted. And I think the beauty of trials, as long as you got some funding to be able to do what you want to do, and that's a big challenge, but was to be able to run trials and get growers excited about what you're doing, and then they could see the relevance back on their property and start utilising that new technology, those new ideas.
An important part of what we still do is consultation, and so can you tell me, Cole, what was the role of the branches and the committees in shaping the research priorities?
Okay, well, at each of the branches we appointed a facilitator, and we have Una Allender here today, not in the room unfortunately, but she, for example, was the facilitator of the Streatham Lake Bolac branch, and she was fundamental to the success in being able to harness the farmers' enthusiasm, point them in the right direction, if you like. They knew what they wanted to do, but she pulled it together. And so having a good facilitator at each of the branches was a key reason why the branches did well. And so does that answer that question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Cam, did you want to add to the consultation?
I've seen lots of organisations that start very enthusiastically, exactly the same as Southern Farming Systems. And I look at Landcare as one of those that then tend to lose their ways unless the focus still remains with what was the core reason why we got here, and to keep listening. And listening is a function in itself, to do that and do that well. But as John alluded to, once you know, here's an idea, how are we going to resource that? And to do it well, so plot trials aren't $5 things. To do them well, to analyse them well, to set them up well, to do all that sort of stuff takes a lot of money. And hats off to SFS to be able to get the resources, attract the resources, whether that's through private industry, through RDCs, whether it's through some of the stuff they've got with membership, whether it's project funding, doesn't really matter where, but that skill to be able to bring those two together and maintain that. So you're not just chasing the money for the sake of the money, you're chasing money for the sake of doing things that keep people interested.
Partnerships is a big part of what SFS does. John, tell us, who are the really important early allies for SFS?
Well, I guess I mean, fundamentally, it was about trying to get some funding for research work, and so we always, as Carl said, we did a lot of work with Ag Victoria, but bodies like GRDC were fundamental in supplying what was levy money from the members back into the trials, and I just think just to go back onto those trials, because SFS developed a reputation for running good trials, and that's not easy to do. It's cost the organisation a lot of money to stay up to date with technology. Auto steer tractors, or a good quality trial seeder. Then, once you start producing good trials, it actually makes life easier to go to those funding bodies to say, this is what we can do, and you then build a reputation in the industry. And there's absolutely no doubt that SFS has a great reputation in what I have to say are tricky conditions often for producing good quality trials because of the waterlogging issues.
So off the back of that, what were the practices or technologies that SFS embraced, that we were early adopters in, that we were able to share with the farmers in doing this work?
I mean, with my background in crop agronomy, I look back and I just think if I was to say to members, probably only so far back as 10 years ago, people would say, I'm looking at 4 or 5 ton of wheat yield. And now if people aren't touching 7 or 8, they're pretty disappointed. Canola was probably 2.5, 3, now it'd be 4+. That doesn't come just because through genetics on new varieties. That's fundamentally come because people have a full understanding now of rotations, just crop management in general. So, right from establishment, we then, as a district, this thing called ryegrass resistance came along and hit us really hard. I remember doing some early survey work, and we'd started to actually overtake the Wimmera and Mallee in terms of the amount of resistance we had, but it was because of the wet weather that we had. But growers have embraced that. They've learned there are new tools around, but they've learned how to manage the crop so that they are growing a crop, not growing the ryegrass. They are managing disease. They're getting the right nutrition. But rotations are a massive thing behind that, and I think that's where the ability to have additional break crops. Also, there's a lot of mixed balms are still in the system, and they're utilising the paddock system to clean up the cropping paddocks and the livestock side of things. So, yeah, the list goes on. It's
Cam, how did the members respond to early digital tools like the Soil Probe Network and things like that?
Keen, because it was new technology that potentially made our understanding, as John said, of basically a water balance is what you're talking about, and being able to make good decisions on the basis of, if it's really wet, what's that going to mean for nitrogen management, and what's that going to mean for other bits and pieces. So the soil moisture probe network's been, you might almost call it like an early adoption of new technology, and that network and that understanding and the learning that you get out of how rapidly moisture's depleted and how much moisture you need to actually finish a crop. And so it added another dimension to the understanding of the system and how the system works. And I think as John was saying, it's not just one thing, it's lots of things that you get right to make a system work and to make it profitable and to make it, sustainability is not necessarily the buzzword now, but that idea of being able to do it year after year and be profitable year after year, you've got to put a system together. And I remember in the early days talking to Col about when you're just doing crop trials and they were relatively simple ones, saying, where's the system bit in this? But if you look at where Southern Farming Systems is now and the things that have been researched and touched on, it is a farm system. It is about rotations. It is about selection to take pressure off this and pressure off that. It's about integrated pest management. That Southern Farming Systems was a leader in that out of necessity because of the pests, Cole, remember, that we're having to deal with and didn't know how to kill them. And so got people in to say, hang on, there might be another way. It's about understanding the system and what the beneficials can potentially do to help aid controlling the pests and how you get your system right that you encourage the beneficials. Number one, stop killing them. And, so it evolved, it matured in the way you approach the system. And SFS has been there from that start to what now is really a sophisticated system. Hit the yields John's talking about in a high rainfall zone takes a lot of good management in a lot of areas to get that right, to get that outcome.
Can I just add something there too? I think John was pretty optimistic talking about yields of 4 tonnes a hectare. If I go back to the start, farmers were budgeting on getting 2.5 tonnes a hectare, a tonne to the acre. Now, that you can't make money on a tonne to the acre crop of wheat or whatever. So from a tonne to the acre or 2.5 tonnes a hectare to be now, 8 tonnes a hectare, John?
7 or 8, yeah.
Is a big transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure that majority of our members would get out of bed for 1 tonne per hectare.
And to pick up on what Cam was saying about the system, Southern Farming Systems, right back when it first kicked off, thought long and hard about the name for the organisation, and it chose Southern Farming Systems because it recognised that they weren't just dealing with crops. Livestock were part of the system, and to appeal to farmers in the high rainfall zone, that's where they were concentrating their efforts, they had to talk about the system involving crops, involving pastures and livestock to get to appeal to the masses, if you like, in the high rainfall zone. I can remember having to, when I applied to register the name, Southern Farming Services was owned by another individual, and we had to spend some money to enable us to use the name Southern Farming Systems. So that's how much we thought of the importance of the name Southern Farming Systems.
So adding on to the legacy and the lessons in this and how research has shaped farming practices, one for each of you, what's your most proud achievement for your time with SFS? John?
Can I have 2? So the branch system that Cole spoke about, when I came on board, I felt the need for a key event, field day event, which I named AgriFocus, and to this day it is still running. And the idea being that we could put more effort into that event than what we were doing, which was sort of being diluted across all the branches. And so very proud of that, and great work that's still going on as well as it is. The other thing is that I made it a bit of a mission to try and offer a pathway to grads to come into the industry. And if you actually look at the successes we've, in my time, 2 PhD students and many of the people that have worked in the business are now agronomists. So I think that speaks volumes about the mentoring, the training, what SFS offers. So I know, as we all know, as CEOs of the business, devastating when a good person leaves, but if they're going on and contributing to the industry, good on them. So
That makes us very proud, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Cole, what's your most proud achievement?
Yeah, I guess I've got a few, but being the first CEO of an organisation that was strapped for cash, I guess my role was to build the organisation in the early stages, harness the enthusiastic farmers, bring on board a number of very key sponsors, involve the funding organisations such as GRDC and others to really enable us to start. And I was with the organisation for 10 years, and I believe in that time we saw farming practice change significantly across the high rainfall zone. So, and I could see how communities were benefiting from that. A lot of communities were in a particularly bad way because of the wool price decline. Livestock returns simply weren't there, and being able to now bring cropping into the system, it really did give them a lift, and not just the farmers, but people in the town, etc. So I guess that's I'm most proud of that.
Yep. Cam.
Probably the other end of Coles, which is the longevity of it. To be 30 years down the track and to be as vibrant and as relevant today to 30 years ago is an enormous achievement. And that, as you would know, you and I write a lot of applications. So a number of them aren't successful, but at least we get enough up to keep, resourcing coming in to be able to maintain the core function, which is listen to what the farmers are saying, what are the issues that we need to be dealing with and responding to that. And so I'm really proud where you see a lot of others drop off over that time or lose their way to be able to maintain that focus and still keep it resourced and vibrant from what it started with a whole lot of enthusiasm and a whole lot of newness and uniqueness to now it's sort of, still ticking over the same things, still to be vibrant in that space, I think is a real achievement.
Yeah. Biggest challenges, John? What's the biggest challenges you've overcome?
without doubt is, to Cam's point, is the funding. That's, when I started, I was fortunate that there was some federal funding that came in, and I really wanted to diversify my the income stream and where we got money from. Well, we had a change of government, and so that the federal funding stream dried up. GRDC had a change of senior management, and for a short time that money dried up. And and then the challenge for me, as I said before about staying relevant, was to stay relevant when you really didn't have very much money coming in. And I look at back at my time, and we did have a couple of really tight years, but the organisation hung together and we came through it, and look at where we are today. So definitely the funding, and I can say that I don't miss the work that you and Cam do now chasing after that funding because it's hard work, a lot of work.
It is.
So, Cole, what's your advice for the next generation?
It's a different time now to when I spent my time with SFS. So things evolve, things change. I'm sure the organisation's in very good hands. Brett, you're now the CEO. You're working with different resources to what I work with, and I'm sure you'll continue to make a success of SFS. I guess it comes back to relevance. It comes back to having the funds to be able to do the things you'd like to do. And if you don't have the funds, well, go out and try and source them as hard as you can. But so I'm here to offer help where I can, but again, my time has come and gone. But I'm sure the organisation will keep batting on.
Cam, your advice for the next generation?
Well, I think we need to recognise once you get to 30 years, that is a generation. And so, and I've made this comment to someone recently, I'm now giving advice to the sons and daughters of the parents when I first started. So that just tells you how old I am. But it also means that a lot of those farmers that have been on the 30 years of development, evolution, the excitement, the ability to bring things forward, a lot of young people that are coming in now, this is just a system you run. It's been a seismic shift over 30 years. And that's why I'm really keen on the young ag professionals that SFS is looking to invest in, because I think we need to rekindle that again and to give the next generation, the younger ones coming in, saying, whole new opportunity here to evolve this farming system into something else. And that's what maintains that enthusiasm. So I think the biggest challenge is how you make that transitional shift. As Cole said, he's had his day. I'm just about had mine, although John's still going. But, we've got to think about how you then implant that same enthusiasm and that same desire to want to work with southern farming systems, bring ideas into southern farming systems, contribute to it, as people do on boards and branches and all of those sort of things as well, and turning up at field days, so that you can maintain that momentum for another 30 years.
John, your advice for the next generation of SFS leaders and members?
I think it's a really exciting time. I'm sure everybody said this in their own time, but I do genuinely think that the technology that's out there at the moment, it wasn't that long ago we all thought AI was something that made cows pregnant, and now it still is. Well, is it? Yeah. I think that's an example of technology that you hear every day on the radio about. Oh, we're now using this to come up with some invention. So I think GPS, auto steer, some of the technology that's in the pipeline, some that's just starting to come out, is really, really exciting times. And I do think it's taken the educational side of ag some time to, particularly the younger kids at school. I think, careers advisors have looked at ag for many years and gone, oh, I don't know that you should be going into that. Whereas I think that's changing, because you can get kids really excited. I mean, we all know how quick they can get onto an iPad or a mobile phone, and they smash through the technology and they're right onto it. Well, I think it's a really exciting time, and we've just got to encourage those guys and girls to come through.
So thanks for coming today. Thanks for joining us in a remarkable achievement, a celebration of 30 years of Southern Farming Systems. Thank you for the opportunity, which we cherish, to build on the foundation of what you guys have achieved and what you've set out for us. And we're very pleased to have your continued support in all of this. So cheers.
Thanks, Brett.